Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Frew with BioBuzz here for another episode of What's the Buzz? Really excited for today's episode. Today's episode, we are going to be talking about leveraging adversity to your advantage. And I'm very excited to welcome Josh Perry, performance coach, on to talk with us today. Josh, welcome.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, speaking of adversity, we were talking before we hopped on that it's been some time in the making for making today possible. So it just seems like a natural fit to get into today's discussion.
Indeed, yeah. So for what Josh is talking about, it's been about 3 months. Josh and I have been trying to plan this program. But that's part of it. All you can control is just the effort you put into it, right? Which I know is something we'll talk about today. Well, better late than never, and I'm excited to have you on today. I think our industry has definitely gone through its fair share of adversity, so excited to hear what you have to say and to learn more about and share more about your practice and your mindset. So for everybody who is getting to know Josh, he's a former X Games athlete, multiple brain tumor survivor, performance coach, speaker, helping individuals, leverage things like, again, adversity to elevate their personal and professional performance. So what a great topic. What a great person to have on to talk today. Josh, maybe could you start off just some introduction to yourself and tell us a little bit about your journey and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, my journey started just like any other kid where I'm from, growing up playing all the school sports possible, and then when it came to high school, where I'm from, it's a really trade heavy area, and I wanted to go to a trade high school to learn landscaping. I was really passionate about improving things, and I enjoyed working with a friend of the family in their business and being outside and just the physical aspect of it. And I knew when I got into 10th grade of that high school, I could enter a co-op program that would allow me to go to work for 2 weeks, earn money, credit, not be in school, and then I could fund my BMX, adventure. And then also I could go back to academics for 2 weeks. And so I could oscillate back and forth for the rest of my high school time. And so that was really appealing to me because I didn't really wasn't interested in learning back then. Ironically, I'm like a nerd about all the things today. But yeah, it was just that transition of working and then learning hard work, grit, perseverance, and essentially working towards a vision. But it was also feeling my passion, which was BMX. And so it got to a point where I turned pro my junior year, so my third year in high school, and my boss gave me an ultimatum because the peak season for BMX is the same as landscaping, spring,
Hmm.
summer, and fall. And I
Yeah.
was taking a lot of Fridays and Mondays off to travel around the country and compete. And I was doing well. I was on the same tour that I grew up watching my idols in and then play their characters on video games. Now I was one of them on the same ramps. And my boss was a friend of the family, and he was blunt with me. He's like, I'm proud of you. By the time I was running my own routes with a truck and trailer and mower, and he's like, you got to pick, like, is it going to be my position for you or this BMX thing? 17 years old, it was easy. I was like, well, thanks, but I'm out. And so I actually dropped out and moved down from Massachusetts down to Greenville, North Carolina, to train with the late great Dave Mira and the other professionals from around the world that, again, I grew up watching TV and playing their characters in video games.
Yeah.
And I knew if I wanted to be one of the best, I had to be where the best were, using the best training facility and get the opportunities that they were getting, because it's all about who you know, the work you put in, and then the opportunity you create by being in proximity. And I ended up being in X Games 2 years later, sponsors, being paid to go travel the world to compete, film video projects, magazine photos, all that good stuff. And then it was March of 2010, year after X Games, getting ready for the first event of the season that actually was my first pro win the year prior. And I was trying a new trick, and I ended up falling, getting concussion, and had to get an MRI to look for TBI. The quick backstory of this was a year to year and a half of complaining of headaches, migraines, vision problems, vomiting, in and out of the doctor's office, the ER, urgent care, and them always saying, I'd ask for a scan. They'd always tell me, well, you're young, you're a professional athlete, you're in shape, your blood work doesn't show anything abnormal, you just have headaches. It's quite normal. They give me some pain pills, tell me to come back if I need more. So fast forward to March 2010, hitting my head, it saved my life because I accidentally got diagnosed with a massive brain tumor. It was 8 centimeters long, 4 wide, and 4 deep into my brain. And who knew I didn't have a pain pill deficiency? So that's what started my journey of really auditing myself from the inside out and how I was showing up, my mindset, my choices, what I was doing to sleep, how I was eating, how I was training, or all the lack thereof. And that's what started my journey of really focusing on human performance but it started with a professional sense of as an athlete on my bike. And then over the years, I just started seeing my world shift because I was changing from the inside. So my environment was now, the perception of it was changing. I was getting into these different experiences, creating new relationships, and my world was improving. But it started within. And then that's what put me on the path. Fast forwarding to January 2020, I decided to step away from my dream to fulfill my calling. And I'm very fortunate. I have a lot of pro athlete friends that they were out of a job because of injury. They were getting outworked, they got older, whatever it was. And here I am. I decided to leave to pursue this path of helping people optimize who they are at a human level. So that way they can show up, whether it's a stay at home parent, an executive, an entrepreneur, an athlete, an artist. We all have the same thing in common. That's our brain. So if
Mhm.
you're focused on being the best you can from the inside out, then your world's going to reflect that from the inside. And that's what I love doing today.
That's amazing. What an amazing story. And something that stands out to me, Josh, is like early on, I think one, it's a blessing when you get to pursue your passion, right? But I think it sounds like you also had the courage or the support system around you and the decisions to take a chance at supporting your passion.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. 100%. My parents were super supportive. I mean, from signing me out of high school to originally paying to bring me all around the state until it turned into national and I was traveling and all that. And my parents, and I'm learning about this with Carol Dweck's work with around mindset. And what I'm really fortunate of is that my parents praised me for the effort I put in. They didn't praise me on the outcome. They didn't say, "Oh, you're so smart, you're so talented." They would say things like, "Oh, you work so hard. We're so proud of you for the hard work you put in, the sacrifices."
mhm.
And that built this level of focus to do the thing, regardless of how difficult it was. BMX, any action sport is very painful.
Yeah,
I'm starting to say now, I'm realizing the coach, or my coach was the ground. The
yeah,
ground was very blunt and painful, but you learn real quick. And so having that support system, that focus of like, what do I need to do to get the outcome I want? Not stare at the scoreboard.
yeah,
What do I have to do to prepare? How do I play the best game? And that's the thing. We're all in the game of life. Life and performance are the sports of trying. And
yeah,
it's my background of like my parents supporting me and putting into me these environments to grow. I developed that focus and it's become a part of who I am. And that's not fixed.
yeah,
Doesn't matter where you are in life, you can change how you perceive the world and how you think. That's one of my favorite things to help people do is to shift their mentality and their
yeah.
mindset to see, oh, this is possible if I change. And that's why I like, doing what I do and leading by example, so vulnerable with the things I share, because I think that's what it takes for people to be like, oh, they look a little like me, or they're doing something similar to I want to do. I can do that too.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and again, it's like you said you're following your calling now, but it sounds like you're also in a position with that calling to help provide that courage to others and that support system to others that your parents gave you. And I think that's really admirable. You and I were talking beforehand, actually this morning. My daughter's in a soccer camp and she's forced to be in older age group, so she was so upset this morning, day two going to it, did not want to go. And I mentioned we try to do the same thing. We're like, all you can do is show up every day. Come on, give it your best. And on the way into to practice this morning or to the camp, she put on like the fight song to like inspire her and put her mindset in the right way. And I always where I try to help support my kids as a parent, I also learn a lot from them. And just it was preparing for this call and knowing I was talking to you, it was a nice eye opener about how we do have control of the music we play in our life, or the environment we put ourselves in, the mental state we put ourselves in.
Yeah, I mean, to a degree, we can control those inputs, and that's what when we were talking offline. Is we can't. Like, I learned the hard way. A lot of times, life's kicked me in the teeth, and kicked me when I was down. It's like we can't control the outcomes. We can't control the various aspects of our lives that are outcome based, but we can always control our mindset and our effort. And
Yeah.
so, when we can think of different modalities or tools or support networks, these different levers to pull on. Music is one of those things. Like, how can we elevate how we feel? Because
Mm-hmm.
we know how we feel affects how we think, and vice versa, which all affects the decisions that we make, the
Yeah.
choices that we make, and the habits we form. So if we can do something like leverage music to make us feel better and give us that confidence. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage only happens once you take action. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
people misunderstand about me all the time, especially when I'm on stage speaking. They're like, how are you so fearless? And I'm like, there's a correction there. doing the thing you're afraid of doesn't mean you're, not afraid of doing it. It just means you're tapping into the value and the purpose of what you're doing it and why it's important
Yeah.
for not only you but the other people involved. And
Yeah.
it's not that you have courage and then you take action. You take action, then you become courageous. And then when you
Hmm.
can think about all the times you've done that in your past, you're building evidence of the type of person you are. And then that's what creates a congruent, message to yourself. And then you demonstrate that to the outside world rather than just saying, I do this, I'm the type of person that does that, but then you're not demonstrating it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good point to make, and I've heard that before. And again, and it's that being courageous over time creates the strength in order to do it, and it helps you get up on stage every time. Well, Josh, let me ask you. So, when we talk about adversity, that's a kind of core pillar to how you coach and to your approach and philosophy. Um, we're in an industry, and of course, BioBuzz, we help build community and help connect job seekers with employers in biotech. We're coming through what's been called biotech winter. It's been 24 months of layoffs and lack of funding and really challenging time for the environment. So a lot of the people in our community are dealing with being unemployed or the fear of being unemployed. We work with a lot of job seekers and a lot of clients who are, again, trying to hire or sometimes doing more with less. So in the workforce setting, these are some of the adversities that I think our community faces. Um, I'd love for you to, can you break down a little bit more about your philosophy and your approach to coaching? Maybe, some of the key elements that you try to bring to the people you work with, or the messaging you want other people to know.
Yeah, so there's two. I'm just gonna keep it real simple. These two frameworks, and the first one I actually have tattooed across my hand, and it's the letter C greater than sign E, and it stands for being at cause for my reality is greater than being at effect to it in my circumstances. So to me, C greater than E is the equation to empowerment, and that's the key to life. Is it's not about what happens to us. That's outside of our control. Because I'll say, being at cause is greater than being at your reality, being at effect to your reality and your circumstances. People be like, oh, well, what about this hurricane that I didn't ask for? And I'm like, oh yeah, what about the brain tumors? Not just tumor, but tumors. I didn't ask for those, but that's just the cards I was dealt. So I had to learn how to play that card, that hand. Now the second concept is what we focus on expands. And so when we're focused on all the reasons to be upset about our circumstances, about our life, all the things we're unhappy with, ourself, all these things, we're conditioning, we're programming our unconscious mind and our autonomic nervous system to be on alert, to unconsciously absorb all the things in reality, in external reality, to affirm our beliefs. And it makes us feel better about being right because that takes away resistance to the change. And that's why people get stuck. They say, I want to do this new thing. All right, cool. There's the emotional cycle of change. Anyone
Mm-hmm.
that's read the 12-week year, that's where I learned it from, but there's other places. And the first two steps are or uninformed optimism. I'm so excited to start this business, to go after this goal, to ask that person out, whatever it may be. And then we get to stage two, which is informed pessimism or the informed skeptic. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when we realize all the work it's going to take. I mean, you don't just decide to do something and then all of a sudden you're doing it great. And then where people usually get stuck and start over is what they call the valley of despair. So it's like this U-shaped curve,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go back and they get stuck in this loop. And so those two concepts of being at cause is greater than being at effect to my environment, my reality, my circumstances, and then what we focus on expands. We combine them. We become empowered to play the game of life. We become empowered to keep trying. Like I said earlier, I see life and performance as the sports of trying. It has nothing to do with outcomes. Any athlete knows this. Any entrepreneur that succeeded in at least one thing that they were attempting to bring to the world, they know that it's not about the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
How many ideas and how many people, fail at things just because they had this brilliant idea, but they didn't do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And we could go back in our own past and say, oh, I was focused on this, I was focused on that, or I was unaware of what I was focusing on. I was unaware of the limiting beliefs, the negative self-talk, the
Mm-hmm.
fixed mindset, all the things that people say are woo, or the personal development stuff isn't for me. All
Mm-hmm.
those types of things. It really comes back to, are you aware of your blind spots?
Mm-hmm.
Most of us aren't. I've worked with psychologists, which was an interesting dynamic for me with imposter syndrome, which was a great breakthrough when I shared that with one of my clients. And they told me, like, hey, therapists need therapists. Like, we're human. So it doesn't matter how of a high performer you are or not. The greatest in the world know that they need to be pushed. They know they have blind spots. That's what coaching is.
Hmm.
It's like if you were to imagine someone walking and you're just pushing them, like you won't let them stop. It may look like this, and maybe go up and down all around, but the idea is consistent movement, momentum.
Hmm.
And if you're focused on the wrong things, you're going to keep going backwards. And that's one of the things that I was sharing with you before is what I learned was the thing that got me so far in life was the very thing holding me back from getting to where I wanted to go. And actually it was dragging me further back. And that was my BMX career. I had so
Hmm.
much of my identity wrapped up in it. I wasn't focused on who I was at my core that allowed me to do that thing. The things like grit, vision, determination, perseverance, like the willingness to endure pain. That's what allowed me to do that thing at such a level that became special to other people. It wasn't that thing that I did that defined me, but my
Yeah,
focus was that. I was unaware of it. So my coach helped me see that. So that's what my philosophy is on a simple basis, on a macro basis. It's we all need help. We all need help exposing blind spots because we can't see what's behind us
absolutely.
unless we have a mirror up.
I love that. And if I could relate it a little bit to our world and in the, with workforce, I would say, because we have some of those conversations as well with candidates we work with. And especially when you're facing an adverse market like this, one example that I would probably relate to that would be, when again you have a PhD that graduates into this market where there's a lack of jobs. Sometimes they think that path they started on is the only path that's available to them, and they're singularly focused on, I need to get that research job, or I need to get that scientist job. And we often try to remind them or reflect on them, like, well, you can apply again, for you, it was the grit and the perseverance and again, it takes a lot to get your PhD. Like, how do you apply all those things? Where's your passion? Is it where else can that be applied? Sometimes it is, you do need someone to help you kind of like let go of that perceived path that you have to be on, to whether it's your bots or kind of get out of your um, proximity bias, mindset, in order to see other opportunities. And whether it's going into a consulting company or going into something completely different. But there are options, and I think it does take sometimes someone, a third party or a coach or someone else, to help you see, outside of that path or that loop that you're on.
Yeah, what you're just describing, it reminds me of when we're focused on that outcome and how it has to occur and in which manner. We get so locked into controlling that thing that we end up suffocating. And it's like if we were to just put weights on this float that's allowing us to float and we just add more and more weight, we're just going to start sinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so we let go of those things, then we can be like, oh, we can breathe, we can look around, we can see other possibilities in different ways that would get us to where we want to go.
Yeah.
I never fathomed or expected that I'd make it to the X Games, but that was a goal of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But my focus was playing the game, doing all the things that would get me there. And so it looked different than I thought. Even the path I'm on today with this career that I have, I created this career for myself. I didn't even know what to think or like how I could fathom life after BMX. But I did the uncomfortable work and I challenged myself, and I had a great coach, and I had my wife supporting me, and my friends I curated of like focused people. There's a difference between like mind and like focus. I don't want people disagreeing with me and saying yes all the time. I want people, hey, what about this? Like pushing me
Mm-hmm.
in a loving, respectful manner. But I think that's what, the PhD route, as an example, we get so caught up on like how something we want to achieve must occur rather than saying, what would it take
Mm-hmm.
in creating possibility and creativity, and maybe realizing maybe we have to go backwards to go forward.
Yep.
I had to do that.
Yeah.
It's not fun, but that's why a lot of us get stuck and we're unhappy. We're sick. We're tired. We're unfulfilled. We're whatever it is. It's because we're not willing to do what other people that succeed do.
That's great. And I think you're right. I think it's, whether it's perceived backwards or it is going backwards, but, if you're letting go of those weights, you are still moving up or moving forward,
Mhm.
by those decisions. Now, you've also recently physically moved. So you're back home, like very close to home.
Yeah, my second home. So I moved to North Carolina when I was 17 in 2007. And then in 2021, my wife and I moved from North Carolina to Florida, where she's from. After being there 3 years, we realized it wasn't for us. So we came back, and we're 2 miles down the road from where we used to live in the Raleigh, Durham area of RTP, so the Research Triangle Park area.
That's great. Well, we have a good community down there, a good BioBuzz community, and there's a lot of a big biotech market down there. And now you also work with not just individual coaches, but you also work with companies on coaching, right?
Yep. Yep.
And one of those clients I know is one we have in common with Kymanox. So I understand you're doing some work with them and some of their, maybe talk a little bit about that as a kind of a case study or example of how you're applying some of your principles into more of a corporate setting or to improve corporate setting.
Yeah, I'm actually in one of the floating pods in the Kymanox office right now. So it's these cool, like, soundproof little booths that they have floating around all the other different offices and stuff. And yeah, no, it started about November 2022. Stephen Perry and I, no relation, which is always a funny joke. There's 3 Perrys in the Kymanox office, and I'm one of them, no relation. But yeah, he and I started working together one on one, and we had known each other. I think we met at a networking event in, like, I don't know, late 2019. So we had developed a relationship for some time, and after the course of us working together, his goal for Kymanox is to have Kymanox performing at a high level. And we know to do that, you have to support the individuals that are the team. And so we started with him as like the captain of the ship and just getting him results and realigning his focus. And then he wanted to expand that to the team. And so the team has access to me to schedule throughout the week. And really what it comes down to is just that support network and an outside unbiased perspective, and just really pushing and encouraging people to grow mentally and physically, and cover all the basis of taking care of themselves, whether it be from a metabolic health standpoint, so sleep, nutrition, exercise, or on the mental and emotional side of having support, having someone challenge ideas or things like that. So what I've learned is common with all of my clients, especially in an organization, is we often think we have to do more to get the result we want when we feel like we're stuck or we're not getting the results we want. And often usually it's always takes something away, because
Yeah.
and I made a post about this right before we hopped on, actually, that we think we have to do more to eliminate the stress. And really, that's just allowing us to avoid the stress. We
Mm-hmm.
have to go, there's this quote, like something along the lines of, like, you have to go in to get out. We have to look within inside of us. And
Yeah.
that's uncomfortable. And so we usually put it off. But having someone that can support, encourage, and you can feel safe with sharing things and then getting different perspectives, it allows different dots to connect. And that's just what we've been doing here. And it's just like one of my favorite things to do, because, like I said, I learned it the hard way, and my life was almost taken from me several different times.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think most people will get to that severe of a level of adversity, but there's a lot of people we all know that have gone through things like cancer or
Yeah.
different life altering experiences. But I see so many people unknowingly suffer. And I have a take on suffering where if you're choosing to suffer, like you're physically to get to a goal or whatever, like you're consciously suffering. So it's really not suffering because you're learning and you're growing. But so many of us, we get caught unconsciously suffering because we don't know that we're doing the things that aren't moving the needle for us. So that's just what we've been doing here. And just, I know this is all like kind of like high level, like not really context driven, but
No, it's great to hear though. I mean, I think, so as my company, we're, talent solutions company. So we help to hire for dozens of startups and larger biotech companies, North Carolina, all up and down the East Coast. And, you know, we're often talking about like, why does an employee want to join that company, or what makes your company special? And, to me, again, knowing that there's a company that is putting an additional layer of support for employees, again, it's for things you can't go to your manager for, right? It's for things that you need a third party perspective, so that the company as a whole can deliver, the best services to their clients and ultimately to the patients, that a company like Kymanox serves. I think it's great. I mean, I think, not a lot of companies offer that. We do see some, like a leadership coach from time to time that they may give access to leadership teams, but I think that's a great case study, and I'm excited to hear that Kymanox is leveraging someone like you.
yeah, I mean, if you think about Kymanox, their mission statement is patients deserve better. And then so Stephen understands that, well, the team needs to feel supported and to be doing better. And so, yeah, when you think about that, it's just like, it makes sense. If we
Mhm.
want to fulfill the mission, we have to make sure that we're all developing capacity to be able to handle the adversity that's going to come. It's like, it's inevitable. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to go through challenges, but the goal shouldn't be to wish for an easier life. The goal should be to become prepared and optimize performance to handle or to become equipped to handle the challenges that we may face in life.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned something just a while I want to bring up, because we've talked about human performance. We've talked about how cause is the controllable element to your environment. How does metabolic health, maybe could you unpack that a little bit, your metabolic health, and how is that something that you are coaching people to control and improve in terms of their performance and overall success?
Yeah, so for the sake of time and simplicity, metabolic health refers to your body's ability to create cellular energy rather than storing it as fat. So we all consume food, we all sleep, and most of society today is data driven to not exercise, which is scary because exercise is one of those asymmetrical or no symmetrical tools where if we don't exercise cognitively and physically, we no doubt decline even further than natural decline as we age. um, but yeah, so really it comes down to the person and how they're living their lives and the goals that they want to achieve, and what they're doing, where they're starting from. So metabolic health, like I said, it simply refers to our body's ability to create cellular energy,
Yeah.
and there's so many different ways to improve that, to optimize that. But first and foremost, if you're not getting adequate amounts of sleep and quality sleep, your metabolic response, your hormonal response, your ability to regulate emotions, process memories and experiences, and then the lymphatic system of our brain, which is the waste management system of our brain, all those systems are suppressed, which then drives more stress, adrenaline, cortisol chronically, suppresses our immune system, and then it creates it breaks our health integrity and exposes us to more things. So when we can dial in our sleep and then dial in our nutrition and then get exercising, it's going to build capacity over the long run to allow us to overcome adversity in an easier manner. But also, metabolic health is our mental health, our emotional health, and our physical health. It's all targets the mitochondria in our cells, which allows our brain to function at a high level.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that, it's like what I used to think: food is just fuel. It is, but it's also information. It
Hmm.
also signals our body and our brain to work in certain ways. And at the end of the day, getting our central nervous system dialed in is the goal. So metabolic health allows that, and all
Yeah.
these modalities. So it's not complex, but it's funny because people want to seek out the hacks and the shortcuts and the sexy things, and it's really what works is the fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, I don't want to do that for whatever resistance comes up, and it's like, well, that's the very reason why someone may be stuck. They're
Yeah.
looking for ways out of doing the work. Everyone that's healthy, happy, and successful knows you got to do the fundamentals.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Yeah, sometimes it's the basics, right? It's like everything you need to know you learned in your little league, from your little league coach, right?
Yeah.
Starts with the fundamentals. Um, well, fantastic. Well, this has been really great and informative. I know we've been wanting to do this for a long time. I want to, as we come up to our 30-minute mark here, um, what are some tips or advice that you would leave the audience with, on how they can start towards a path towards, controlling what they can control, and again, what to focus on? What are some tips you kind of would offer to the group?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing with focus is, we all need to start with the end in mind. I mean, Stephen Covey made that, famous in his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. Just start with the outcome, start with the experience you want to have. And you work your way back to now and ask yourself, am I experiencing this? If it's a no, which most of the time it won't be, then it's like, okay, cool. Well, what do I need to do to improve my situation? What are the gaps essentially? Like, figure out where you are and where you want to go and what those gaps are. And it
Mhm.
could be knowledge, it could be skills or tools, or it could be master the fundamentals,
Mhm.
do the things you should be doing that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
So that's what, when it comes to focus, I mean, that's just the first step, is just really creating that awareness. And that's what a lot of us don't do. And we're masters at suppressing the things that come up in our body and our mind. And all the avoidance and distractions and suppression, all that does is it transcends our problems to other areas of our lives. It doesn't go away. So a lot of us, we may get home from a stressful day and just have a glass of wine or a couple glasses of wine, or in some cases a bottle of wine a night, and we think that that's helping us, handle the stress.
Hmm.
That's only suppressing it, and it's creating more problems. And so the uncomfortable work, the resistance that we feel, is the very thing we have to acknowledge, because it's all signals. It's all telling us information that we can extract. And that was the video I posted earlier today, was stress is an informative signal, but we run from it. It's uncomfortable. But those are the things we have to embrace. And it's not fun. I'm not saying this work is fun. I'm not saying it's easy. I know it's scary,
Mhm.
but it's the necessary work we need to do to move the needle in our lives to the direction we want to go. So it's, again, keeping it simple. It's auditing your focus and then really figuring out where you are, creating that awareness to where you are, where you want to go, and what's missing. And 9 times out of 10, it is simple things. And then we can get other strategic, advanced information. But if we're not mastering the fundamentals, which we may have to learn some about, like, what does quality sleep look like? What does sleep consistency look like? What does my protein intake look like? Why do I need this much? What type of exercise do I need to do? Why is cardio actually not the thing I should be doing if I need to maximize my time? I need to lift weights, but I don't want to get bulky. Well, all those things, all the myths around it, we need to have awareness to the basics. So it's just about creating that awareness on all levels, your focus, where you are, what you're not doing, and if you need support.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we appreciate all the insights. And Josh, you're listed as one of our experts in the Talent Lab, our online marketplace for biotech talent. So I know people can reach you there. They can also reach you on LinkedIn. You're very active on that. I guess in closing, I like to close with something fun. Do you have a movie that really stands out, that embraces, or that you recommend, that is a good inspirational movie that talks about overcoming adversity or embracing adversity? Is there one that stands out to you? Because sometimes, again, just like songs, I think to me movies are great for helping people to kind of take that first step and get the inspiration.
Yeah, so I didn't have the assignment to do my homework. So I'm
I'm
not
throwing
feeling
one at
prepared.
you.
But the first two movies that come to mind are The Life of Walter Mitty with Ben Stiller.
Mhm. Yeah.
That I don't know why. I mean, his whole journey is why, but that was the first one that popped up. And then the movie with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, A Star Is Born. I
I
think
haven't seen it.
that that demonstrates someone working through limiting beliefs and fear, and then becoming an icon. But either one of those movies, those are the only ones that popped up right away. So I'd
That's
say
great.
either one of those.
Well, two for everybody to watch. Have you ever seen The Martian?
The Martian sounds familiar. Remind me, what is that?
That's not Ben Affleck, the other one. He's stuck on Mars.
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon stuck on
Yeah,
Mars.
yeah, that's a good one. Interstellar. That's
And
another
yeah,
good one. We're still talking about space movies and
I know,
adversity.
right? A lot of movies about adversity. Well, whatever you need to do to take your first start, whether it's music, movies, or just need some inspiration, start with the fundamentals. You're in control. Start with the end in mind. All great messages, Josh. I really appreciate your time today. Devoting time to hopefully help inspire and give other people some courage to kind of take those first steps. So I hope anybody that's inspired today reaches out to Josh to continue the conversation, and I'm sure this won't be the last time. Hopefully next time it doesn't take us 3 months to connect.
Well, either way, I appreciate us making it happen. I appreciate the work you guys are doing to support people. And, I think the one thing I want to say to end is, you mentioned inspiration. That's something I've heard for 14 years with my story, and something I've in the last year really focused on is, if someone says they're inspired, I'm going to challenge them and ask them, in which way? Like, what action are you going to take? So you mentioned one bit of action, but that's what I want people to think about. If they do feel inspired by anything that we've talked about, think about, what action am I going to take now? Inspiration is a great feeling, but we can, go to watch a movie or listen to a song and feel inspired, or read a book or whatever. But if we're not doing anything with it, it's useless. Just like knowledge.
Yeah,
Knowledge has power unless you apply it. So I want people to really think about what they're going to do differently.
that's great. Good topic to end on. Take action.
Yep.
All right, Josh. Well, thanks again. Hopefully some people are taking action after today, and we will talk soon. Thanks.